The best way to season your Smithey cast iron skillet is to cook with it. Don't overthink it. When you have a Smithey, you don't have to stress over seasoning. Let me explain. These skillets are
pre-seasoned, and its polished interiors make for a smooth cook surface that is naturally non-stick. Unlike rougher cast iron that requires seasoning to fill in all the little nooks and crannies on the cooked surface. Imagine trying to make sandpaper smooth.
The first few times you use your skillet, you may strip off some of the seasoning and have a splotchy interior like so. But that's okay. Just keep cooking, and the oils from your foods will bring that seasoning right back. The color of your Smithey will change over time from this beautiful brown to a dark, even black color like this. But that's good, so enjoy the rest.
The color of your Smithey will change over time from this beautiful brown to a dark, even black color like this.
That is not black. This is black. That was a reenactment of my reaction when I first saw that 54-second video by Smithey. But in real life, I just started laughing, honestly. I've never owned a Smithey before, but I've seen more complaints online about how difficult it is to season a Smithey than I've seen about any of the other modern, smooth cast iron companies like Field, Stargazer, Finex, and so on. There's a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation out there about cast iron, especially about seasoning cast iron. And that's the main reason that this channel exists in its current form. But most of that misinformation at least sounds reasonable. The claims that Smithey makes, however, are just such blatant gaslighting that I had to make a video about it. If you're a Smithey owner, I'm here to tell you that your ugly, weak seasoning is not your fault. You're not crazy for thinking that there's something wrong here, that there's something off. This is not a dark, even black, despite what Smithey is telling you. And just keep cooking on it is not always the best answer to your seasoning problems. The black Smithey in this video looks a lot like my Lodge looked after I sanded it very smooth and then seasoned it in the oven, as is normally recommended, and cooked on it for several months. The seasoning just would not bond properly to the surface of that Lodge that I had sanded smooth. And I was hoping that after enough consistent cooks, that it would just build on itself, and over time it would develop that same black, even patina that my vintage Wagner's had. And the seasoning isn't just about looks, it's also about non-stick performance and about protecting the iron from corrosion. But it just didn't happen. Eventually, I accepted that it was never going to happen if I just kept doing what I was doing. So I decided to learn what really goes into quality seasoning. I've experimented with a variety of methods over the past year and learned a lot. Many people will tell you that seasoning is simple, you don't have to overthink it. But the truth is that, like most topics, there is a basic high-level understanding that you can have that will serve you well in most cases. But under that surface level, it actually is rather complex and nuanced. That high-level basic understanding will get most people and most pans far enough, but for a problem child like a Smithey, you need to actually understand the why and the how of it all to get the best results. Now, I acknowledge that pursuing the best results isn't for everyone. Even a weak or ugly seasoning can do its job just fine protecting your skillet from rust. And while a good seasoning layer does lessen sticking, proper use of temperature and fat while cooking is more important for that than your seasoning, really. But if you do want the best results from your Smithey, keep watching. I went ahead and paid my $195 for this 10-inch Smithey so I could get some first-hand experience with these pans. First thing I did was put it under the microscope to get a close look at the surface texture. It has these telltale concentric rings, which is the signature of a turning operation where the pan is spun and a cutting tool shaves the surface down to a final uniform smoothness. Smithey doesn't say much about what actual specific tools they use for this step, or even if they do this step at all, though the evidence is clear that they do. They keep it pretty vague in their videos. They do mention and show off this wet rock tumbling step, and they say that they grind each piece down, deburr it, polish it, and smooth the surface. Whatever all that actually means specifically. Elsewhere, they also state that they use grapeseed oil for seasoning. All that work leads to this result. The blonde, weak, useless seasoning layer from the factory immediately disappears in the first cook. To be fair, Smithey does acknowledge that this happens, but mixing in some truth with the misinformation is all part of effective gaslighting. By saying that with enough time and enough cooks, you will eventually build up that dark, even, strong seasoning layer, they always give themselves an out. If your seasoning remains weak and splotchy, it's not their fault. It's your fault for being impatient or for cooking wrong. There's nothing wrong here. You just need to cook on it more. Give it another 6 months, a year, a decade, and then finally you'll have that well-seasoned piece of cast iron that you can pass on to your grandchildren. Maybe they'll finally have a good non-stick seasoning layer that they can enjoy. They do tell you that you can do some stovetop or oven seasoning if you want to give your seasoning layer a boost.
Should you want to add a little shine or just kickstart the journey a little faster, here's what we suggest.
So let's try that out.
Add a little bit of neutral oil to the pan. The important thing here is you want to make sure that you leave no oil left in the pan, almost treat it as if you were trying to clean it. Get your burner going to high. After a little bit, once your Smithey starts to smoke, that's a good sign, that's what we want. You're gonna add a little bit more of that neutral oil, and you'll actually notice that this is starting to turn color, which is really cool.
The process did add a little color to the skillet, and I cooked with it for a couple of days afterward. Works just fine. The seasoning did not disappear like it did the first time around, at least not instantly. And you could cook with this to have a perfectly functional skillet. But if I'm paying $200 for a skillet, I kind of want the best of the best. And I want it to look good. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it is true that hundreds of cooks would finally form a dark, even black seasoning. My experience with my polished lodge tells me otherwise, but I could be wrong. I'm not, however, going to spend a year of my life finding out the answer to that question. If you're a Smithey owner, let me know in the comments if you have gotten to that level or not. I'm willing to bet that most Smithey owners get frustrated and put it in the back of their cabinet before they ever get to that level, if they care about the seasoning layer at all, and they're intentionally trying to build it to that dark black look. Instead, today I'm going to show you a different method of preparing the pan to take a stronger, darker seasoning, called vinegar bluing. In a video on Smithey's restoration service, Chris here describes Smithey's heat bluing process that they put their pans through before seasoning.
After we get it completely clean, we'll bring it inside for bluing. 500-600 degrees for a certain amount of time. It just helps bring the color out in the skillets.
He says that this helps bring out the color in the skillet. What's actually happening is that magnetite, iron oxide, is being formed on the surface of that pan, and that changes the color. And it also does some other important things. It is important for binding a seasoning layer effectively to the iron, but on its own, it doesn't actually do very much. I've tested a lot of this stuff myself and shared those results in previous videos. And one of those tests, I tried seasoning a cast iron pan that had been sanded smooth, roughly smooth, without any bluing. I compared that to a heat blued pan and a vinegar blued pan. One test that I do is to try cooking a pancake in the skillet without any added oil or fat. Both the skillet that was seasoned without any bluing and the one that was seasoned after heat bluing were very sticky. However, the vinegar blued pan, even without any added oil or fat, released the pancake quite well. As far as I've learned from my experimentation, that is due to two other important factors. The second factor, after the presence of magnetite, is the texture of the surface. Microscopic pitting in the surface of that iron allows the oil to bind more effectively onto that surface. It also allows a spatula or knife to slide across the surface without actually touching or scraping all of the seasoning, making it more durable. A rough Lodge or other cheaper brand will benefit from this factor, but it doesn't have to be that rough. A smooth surface with microscopic pitting will still feel very smooth during use. Here's a highly polished surface. Here it is after vinegar simmer bluing, and here's another pan after rust bluing, which is a different method I recently made a video about.
I've had a lot of issues in the past with more generic, coarser cast iron skillets not being able to season as easily. The benefit of having this smooth polished surface is you're not fighting to fill in all of those gaps with your seasoning, making Smithey substantially less of a chore to season.
Wrong. Totally wrong. At least in my experience, coarse skillets are much easier to season and the resulting seasoning is more durable than on very smooth cast iron. I still don't like using them because of other reasons, but it's not because the seasoning isn't strong. There is a happy middle ground though, where you can have all the benefits of smooth cast iron. It's easier to clean, it's a little bit more non-stick, it just feels nicer to use. But with the microscopic pitting, you can still get those benefits of the stronger, more durable seasoning layer that a coarse skillet has. Lastly, the process of corroding those pits while vinegar or rust bluing also releases loose carbon that was previously locked into the iron matrix. This carbon becomes part of your seasoning layer. And in my experiments, it has seemed important in creating a durable and non-stick result. This is the third factor. We can cover all of these bases by just simmering an acetic acid solution in your cast iron skillet. Just get some white kitchen vinegar. It'll likely be 5% concentration, so mix it 50-50 with water. Usually I'd strip all the existing seasoning off first using lye, barkeeper's friend, steel wool, sanding, take your pick. But this time, I didn't even bother with that and it still worked just fine. I filled the skillet up as far as I wanted it to work its magic and brought it to a simmer for 10 to 15 minutes. Afterward, I flushed it with cool tap water and scrubbed with a soft sponge. You should end up with a result like this. You'll notice that it's much more of a dull, classic iron color than the shiny silver it was before. When wiping it dry with a paper towel or other cloth, you'll collect some more loose carbon and magnetite. You don't have to worry about removing all of this. It's good to have some there, and it'll get locked into the seasoning layer and stop shedding by the time we're done. Let's take a look under the microscope before we get there though. From a lesser magnification, you can still see the rings, but after getting closer, the corrosion from the simmer becomes clear. This is a good thing. Now we season as normal. I'm using grapeseed oil, just like Smithey does at their factory. I wipe it on and then wipe off as much as possible. I put it in the oven and heat to 500. After 45 minutes at 500, I take it out and wipe on more oil while it's still hot. Again, wiping off as much as possible. I put it back in the oven for another 25 minutes, then repeat that step again. You can bake for longer than I do or let it cool completely between cycles if you want. That's what some people recommend. I just season so often that I want to get it done as quickly as possible. And this time period so far has seemed to be good enough. I will probably do some more experiments to see where the diminishing returns are, if baking it for 3 hours is any different from baking it for 30 minutes, but I haven't done those experiments yet. And there we have it. I would much rather have this as a starting point than what Smithey gave me. The first cook on the new seasoning went great, no shedding at all. It seems much tougher and perhaps slightly more stick resistant than it was upon arrival. I did not fill this skillet all the way to the brim so that you can still see the distinction between the area of the skillet that has been blued versus not. I think it would actually perform even better and look darker if I had done rust bluing instead of vinegar bluing. I found that on these very smooth pans, rust bluing creates deeper pits than the vinegar bluing does, and that makes a difference when the surface is already so smooth. It does take more effort and time, however, and I want to just show you the easy method instead. If you want to go the extra mile on your Smithey, then you can check out my video on rust bluing and follow that guide. I like the skillet, by the way. The handle is comfortable, ergonomic. I like how it feels in my hand. And the finish work on the skillet is very refined. The people at Smithey seem very passionate about what they do. They love cast iron cookware, and so do I. I wish them continued success. But I want people to use and love cast iron. And when they spend $200 for a new skillet with finicky, weak seasoning that doesn't ever seem to reach that strong, even, consistent black quality, that Smithey themselves sets them up to expect, they get frustrated and they shove it into the back of their cabinet and might never cook on cast iron again. Smithey, if this video makes it to you, well, you probably bought into your own narrative here and believe everything that you're telling us, but there is a better way. As a customer, I would love it if you set us up for success by tweaking your grinding and bluing processes, such that we start with a good strong layer that only gets better over time, rather than hoping in a year or 2 or 5, maybe we'll get to something like this. You could end up delivering a much improved product, one that I think your customers deserve at this price point. I've created a written guide to vinegar and rust bluing, complete with pictures and step-by-step instructions. Check the pinned comment for that link, or watch some of my other videos on the topic, like this one about rust bluing.